There was snow on the ground for my second big kill. I had it made with the muskox, you know. Didn't have to have this animal, but it was dropped in my lap. It was given to me. There was 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground. It was gathering a few berries, not too many. Mostly the berries I'm gathering at this point, I'm eating. I already have my berry log full, 6 gallon in the berry log, 5 gallon in my pants. I made that berry cache in my pants in the corner of Rock House. Got some roots in the cellar, bunch of dry fish, and the whole muskox. I am looking good. But there's rose hip patches. The rose hip bushes a little higher than the berry. You know, berries are under the snow. Although I was getting a few where the wind blowed them off. But now I found a patch of rose hips that I hadn't encountered before. And I mean, there's rose hips kind of all over that country, but this was a consolidated patch of rose hips. I know there was a boot full or 2 or 3 even of these rose hips just everywhere. And so I finally made time to go get these rose hips. Just a patch of rose, the most beautiful patch of rose hips I might ever saw. They were thick and kind of shriveled up and freeze dried, so which was good, you know. Oh, they pick nice, and you fill a boot up slicker and shit. I did get a boot full, and then went back another night and got another boot full, and there was still another boot full there. And the last night or maybe it was the second to the last night I showed up, there's a porcupine. A porcupine is a great survival animal because they're fat. Porcupines actually have fat, like beaver, like moose, like muskrat. Then there's the porcupine. Raccoons, although we didn't have them, but that's another example of fat animals. These animals have possum. These animals have gobs of fat. Why that is, you know, we don't know. But there's certain animals that carry a lot of fat, and porcupine is one of them. Porcupine and porcupines are easy for a primitive situation because you can run them down and get them. They're not fast. They rely on their quills for protection from everything, but they can't protect you from a man with a club. So I get to my patch, and there's a porcupine in it, and this is all just kind of before dark. And it ain't just any old porcupine. It's a giant porcupine. This sucker's big. Like a porcupine can weigh as little as, they look big because they're all fluffy and their quills are big and long. But mostly once you skin one down, it's, 5 or 6 pounds, maybe 10. 10's a pretty good one, actually. This was a 20-pound porky. It was big. A big old porcupine. And it's sitting on its ass, picking rose hips off the bushes and eating them like a little man. I watched it a long time. I set the camera all up on it, zoomed it all in, and then here's this port. And then you got all the snow. They'll use this scene. Everybody's already seen it by now, probably. Uh, there's all the red. They're red. They're red, red, red. And then we got all the white snow, of course. And there's no leaves on the bushes, so you just got all these red fruits with a white backdrop, and then this big ass porcupine sitting in the middle of them. I mean, porcupine has a 5-fingered hand, and they're almost like a possum. They kind of got thumb claws, and so a porcupine's a real agile front pawed animal, like raccoon, like possum, somewhat like bear. So he's actually picking. He's picking like a little man. I got him in the camera, and then I go cut my stick. I go cut a club. I have my bow, but I don't need to shoot this thing with an arrow. I've killed lots of porcupines over the years. My preferred method of killing porcupines, clubbing them to death. So I go cut me a nice stout birch, and I go back, and I square up my camera. He's still in the frame, and I go back behind him, and then I run into the frame, and I whap him on the head a couple times, and then I got me a big dead 20-pound porcupine. And I was very happy and excited to have him because even though I had all the muskox meat, I know this would just be a change of diet if nothing else, you know. But by the time I drug him back and I filmed that because I had no way to carry this thing. I didn't want to skin him up there. I didn't want to skin him at all because then the birds can get at him, you know, once you take the skin off. And I'd have to cache him in that crazy I had the muskox in. I didn't feel like taking it all apart. So I wanted to leave. I had no hurry to eat him at all. Drug him back to camp the whole way. It was dark. So that night, of course, I got him before he freezes solid. It's cold now. The muskox is frozen. The porcupine's gonna be frozen within hours, if not an hour, from when I open him. So I open him, take out all the entrails, the the the, uh, the lungs, and the heart, the kidneys, the liver, everything. I mean everything, even the gut. The only part of these animals I was not using at this point, and the rabbits too, was the large intestine. The large intestine is the first stretch of intestine after the stomach. So it's like an extension of the stomach, the large intestine. And it's really thin. It's very, very, very thin. And then all that food matter's in there, half digested, almost to the shit phase, but not quite there. But it's that the walls of that of the large intestine are so thin, and then the food matter is not condensed yet. So I mostly leave that. I don't mess with that. It's too hard to clean, and the walls are so thin, and it's so shitty. But now the the small intestine, which is the section for your asshole, is where the food's getting tight and starting to turn into a dropping. And in game, a lot of game, maybe not necessarily a bear as much as some others or things, but on coon and ungulates like the muskox and the moose and this porcupine, beaver would be the same. The pellets are getting harder toward the lower, and you can take that lower and the lower intestine wall's thicker, and that's where all the fat's laced in. All that fat, all the body cavity fat's laced in the small intestine, the kidney area too. And you grab it and you squeeze the droppings right out. And you know, it sounds disgusting because we're not used to that kind of stuff, but it really pushes out super clean. And of course, that's what I did to the muskox and all my rabbits, and now this porcupine, because there's a lot of fat in the small intestine. You do not want to throw that away. I eat the small intestine. I boil it and eat it. So anyhow, uh, I did all that before he froze back up, and I put it on bark so it wouldn't freeze down to the ground. And I ate most of the entrails that night. I ate all the entrails that night probably. But then what I'm getting at is I stitched up this cavity. You know, all I did was gut him from his pelvis to his ribs to his breastbone, took everything out, and then I stitched that back up with my trapping wire. Now this is a porcupine. He's covered in a zillion quills. That's how they're made. That's how they keep from getting ate by other animals. The birds can't get him or not. I tie his front legs together and I hang him in a tree like this, and he just hangs there. The snow sheds off of him. I mean, his face was kind of busted up a little from the club job. So the birds would fly in and they could land on his face, and they pecked around his mouth a little wee bit. You know, camp robbers, you gotta watch the birds don't steal your meat. So nothing could get him. And I just left him that way, hung. I didn't need him. I was eating muskox, still lots of muskox, you know, the whole thing. And so he hangs there quite a while. I left him hang forever. And he wouldn't freezer burn either. He still had his hide on. I mean, this thing's complete. Took the guts out because the guts will taint it if you leave them in there long enough, even frozen. And I just left him. And so then he became now you know, 10 days went by, 2 weeks went by, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving. By my count, you know, I was notching a tree for a count. And I want even in my trapping, you know, all the years I spent in Alaska, supplied or unsupplied or whatever, you know, I always try to have some grouse set aside or some good fish, or you know, I try to have a special Thanksgiving dinner, even all through the years and all my remote journeys. And I thought maybe I'd get something, and I never did get nothing. I caught some rabbits, but I ate them. So Thanksgiving's coming, and I thought that porcupine's going to be Thanksgiving dinner. And by then, I'd ate muskox like 3 weeks straight, and I'm getting a little tired of it. And I pulled that porcupine down on Thanksgiving Day, built a big roar. I did it Indian style, and I've done this before. I actually had an authentic Athabascan Indian. I had read about Indian style a number of times, but never did it. But the first time I ever did it was on the Yukon River, and a good Indian friend of mine, Athabascan Indian, that showed me how to make fish wheel and a few other little tricks my first year in Alaska. Me and him did a porcupine. I'll never forget it. And that's how they do it. They just burn the quills off. You make a big fire, and you roll it around the fire, and you singe all the quills off. And there's several reasons that that's good to do. So then you don't lose the skin. Now you can, well, back up a little wee bit. You can take porcupine quills and do some crafting with them and make needles and stuff. But I've been around a lot of porcupine kills, and it seems to me what them quills always end up where the hell you don't want them. You know, anytime I mess with porcupine quills, they wind up in my gear, in my sleeping bag. You know, they're laying around camp. Plus, you know, I'm more after food value than porcupine quills. You know, I got a Leatherman with a punch. I don't need to decorate my and shit like that. I don't want these porcupine quills, so I choose to go the Indian way of cooking and burn them all off. Then you still got the skin value. You know, there's a lot of nutrients in the skin of everything, a lot. That's why the bears eat the head and the skin off a lot of animals, especially fish. And so at the same time, it holds in the fat when you're cooking it. You know, you got the skin layer. I wanted to roast this on the fire. I rolled it around all day and scraped the quills off of it. And then and that was Thanksgiving Day. It don't cook through. I mean, this thing was frozen completely solid. It was like a stone with it when I began this process. So by the time I got all the quills burned off, it's thawed out, but it is not cooked. It's raw inside. And it took a long time. So it's toward the end of the day. I haven't ate my Thanksgiving meal yet. I worked on getting the quills off in this big outdoor fire. And so there it is, black. And there's some grease dripping out of it because it's singed on the outside. I took my knife and I cut off a piece of black skin. And man, you know, I said it's fat. The porcupine's fat. There it is, burnt. We got no seasoning out there. You know, I season shit by burning it when I'm out there. You know, you can roll it around in ashes, and there's a few plants that'll half-ass season stuff, but seasoning's a real problem. When I'm looking for a change of diet out there and I got a bunch of meat, I start burning it. I just burn the out of it, char it. It's a great way to season stuff. So that's, of course, what I was doing with these quills. So I peeled off this piece of skin. Well, it's nothing but fat and skin. It's like a pork rind, and I eat it. Oh my God, it was good. Holy shit, dripping there, grease all over me. You know, grease is the name of the game out there. I mean, I've been eating muskox 3 weeks. This porcupine pork rind was, oh, I peeled off another big slice. But like half hour later, I got that thing half-ass, damn near all peeled. I ate the skin and the fat all off the outside of the carcass of this porcupine. And so it's Thanksgiving Day. And I'm praising the Lord for a great Thanksgiving, this good animal that I've been holding out for. And then it made me think. Now think about this. You know, you yourself at Thanksgiving Day. What's the best part of the turkey? What do you peel the skin off the turkey, you know, because that's the best part. It's delicious when it's cooked crispy. And that's how this porcupine burnt skin was. It was like the skin off the turkey. And I fed off that thing for 5 days after that. I had a 5-day Thanksgiving with this porcupine. I started boiling it after that, but it made a big, rich, creamy fat layer on top of my water. Because like I said before, the porcupine is a fat animal. Very fat, very desirable, valuable survival animal, porcupine.